In this video, I take you behind the scenes of the Rustic Songbird Podcast, where I interview Krista Francis, who created a 30-day challenge called Girls with Guitars. This is a challenge for girls of all ages who are ready to finally pick up a guitar and learn how to play. This is a challenge that Krista has created, and you have a chance to be a part of it. She's currently running a challenge that you can join, and you can go to girlswithguitarschallenge.com to sign up. But in this video, I'm going to interview her about how she saw the need for this challenge, what happened when she started the first challenge, and how you can get involved. And if you are a girl who wants to learn guitar, I think it's a great time to start no matter how old you are. And so I hope that this video and this interview encourages you to get started, because it is so fun. I've played guitar for over 15 years and I'm constantly learning. I love playing. It's so much fun, and I would love to encourage you to get started. This is a really fun interview, and I want to invite you to subscribe to this channel for more videos like this coming soon, interviews with people on my podcast that are in the music industry, to encourage you and inspire you in your next steps for your music career. So make sure to hit the subscribe button, and I hope you enjoy this interview. Let's get started. My guest on the show today is Krista Francis, and she has recently started what's called the Girls with Guitars 30-day challenge, and we're going to talk all about that today. It's for anybody who is wanting to learn guitar and who has maybe been putting it off and wants to finally start learning to play guitar. And so Krista has started this challenge, and a new one is just now starting. So if you're listening to this podcast, you can get started with the challenge as well. We're going to share some stories about women that are maybe singers, songwriters, who are wanting to pick up an instrument, be able to write while playing guitar, and share about some of those transformations. So Krista, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Lydia. It's good to be here with you.
Well, tell our listeners a little bit about your background in music education and why you have this passion to help other women and girls learn music, learn guitar.
Yeah. So I grew up in a musical family that was not anything that was off the beaten path for me to pursue. But I would also say, and maybe we could say this in terms of just being a creative, is sometimes it's like you dip your hand in a lot of things, but maybe you're like, well, I'll do this, oh, I'll do that, so there's like that kind of creative entrepreneurial spirit I think I've always had that I can definitely see running through my family as well. But I did pursue music education, and I taught K through 8 music for 3 years just right out of college. But I never felt like, oh, I'm meant to be a classroom teacher. I always really also felt called to like teaching, just teaching about our faith. And since, before college, but it was in college that I started playing guitar and took to it really quickly. But one thing I'll say, and this is actually really an important backdrop for everything that's happened with Girls with Guitars, and I shared this with that group too, is when I was 16, I always have loved to sing, and that really run vocal music, all of that runs in my family. But at 16, my older sister was engaged to this guy who was a worship leader and a college pastor. And I remember this one particular time I was just there at their church, just watching him lead worship. And the thought came to my mind, I wish I could play guitar. I wish I could lead people on guitar and lead worship. And then the thought that came immediately after that was, but I could never do that. Right?
Wow.
And that was the belief. And I don't even know why. I don't even know why that was the belief, whether that was like the enemy just trying to shut that down and be like, don't even try. Whatever it was, there was some kind of insecurity or belief of like, well, I wish, but I can't.
I've heard so many people say that as well. And so maybe it's doubts that we could do it, or just sometimes our mind tries to protect us from things that we don't know. So we don't want to fail at it, right? So why even start?
Right.
So I think a lot of people have those thoughts like, oh, I could never do that. But you could, right? So what if you could? What if you did? What if you tried?
What if I tried? Exactly.
Yeah.
And somebody, my dad, put a guitar in my hands 2 years later, not knowing that I had that desire. He just got this guitar from somebody he knew and was like, "Hey, do you want a guitar?" And I'm like, "Oh." Even still, that first semester of college, I had gone through some really tough things. I lost my mom to cancer, just right after high school. So there were some definite things that were going on. But I did take my guitar with me, but I stuck it under my dorm room bed and was like, not gonna do it. So even still, it was like, no. And I think that was a protective mechanism too. But what ended up happening, and I can't fully describe, I just really believe it was probably the Holy Spirit. But I pulled it out one day, and I was not a good guitar, but like I maybe knew one chord really badly. and, and that's a lot of people's stories, by the way. Um, but I just started like pouring out my heart to God of the grief that I was going through.
Yeah.
And I started, and then I wrote a song, like with maybe two chords.
Mm-hmm.
And something happened, like something just switched. And it brought, and that process and that season, I just began writing more, pouring out my heart to God, just like tucked away in this little side room off on in our dorm, like our dorm floor. And then people were like, "Hey, you wrote a song," or like, they wanted to hear it. And I'm like, what is this? I just didn't even really get what was happening. And then the leader of our college group that I was part of, like our on campus ministry group, was like, "Hey, you're a music major. We need a worship leader." And I was like, no, I can't do that. Again, I was like, I can't do that. But God, I had a real divine appointment moment where I knew God was like, this is what I'm calling you to do. So from that point, I started playing with other people who were way better guitar players than me. And I just struggled and stumbled through it. It was like, oh, I suck. I'm the worst. Like, I can't even get like three chords down, and I can't do it fast, and like, all the things. But
Mm-hmm.
something was changing in terms of me seeing, like, actually, I can do this. I'm doing it. And I realized the key is to not stop.
Right.
Like, you may not get every chord. You may not be fast. You may just totally have it. It may be buzzing and you just feel like horrible. But the key is to not stop.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what pushed me through to a place of confidence and actually seeing God work through like songwriting, leading worship. And it's been that way ever since. Um, and
Wow.
so, and I'm not a guitar virtuoso, but it's like the thing is that if you want to say like you master the basics, the simple, and you figure out what is your thing to do. Because your thing
Mm-hmm.
to do on the guitar may not be somebody else's thing. But here's what I told the girls in our first round of Girls with Guitars challenge. I said, I tell them the story about what I just shared with you, and I said, here's what I want to focus on. If you have a dream, if you have a desire to play an instrument, to play the guitar, do not discount that because it's there for a reason. I believe that with
Yes,
all my heart.
I do too. I agree.
Like do not ignore that there's something there that
Mm-hmm.
needs to kind of be born and figure out. And that doesn't mean you'll be on a world stage, like, but it does mean there's something in worship, in music, in creativity that God's put in there as a seed. Now let's see that grow. Let's see it
Yes.
happen.
Oh,
And
so good.
so that's sort of the backdrop, but I hadn't been doing teaching. I hadn't been doing that. And that kind of leads up to, if you want me to share, like, feel free to ask whatever.
Yeah.
I,
Let me ask you about what was your vision for the challenge? Did you see a need? Like, were people asking you about learning to play guitar, or did you just think, well, that was my story, so maybe it would help someone else?
I was not thinking any of that. And this is the part where I just like, I love telling this story because I know 100% it was God. 100%.
I
Uh,
love that. Tell me about it.
yeah. So, um, I was actually, just a quick backstory. I was actually running a storefront, a food business the last 4 years here in Nashville, in East Nashville. And there, that's a whole other story. But I knew at the
Yeah.
end of last year, I knew that it was time to close that down, but I didn't really know what was next. But I will say this, I'm like, it's time for me to answer the call to music in a different way, in a more like concrete, like, yes, Lord, this is on the front burner kind of way. And that really hadn't been my story. Not that I hadn't done music, leading worship, all of that, but just, when you know that you haven't fully answered yes.
Like, now's the time to take
Yeah,
that.
like something's changing here and it's time for me to take that step. So I really like resolved that in my heart. And so went through like January, February, and was just trying to put some pieces in place. Like I even bought an RV and was like, I think I'm just gonna go. Like crazy life, but that sound, it's just kind of part of it is like exploring and discovering and discerning. But anyway, as you know, on March 3rd, the tornado ripped through Middle Tennessee and straight through Nashville.
Right.
Like literally 900 feet from my house. Just crazy,
Wow.
just crazy craziness. Like my whole neighborhood right down the street, like demolished.
Yeah.
And then on the back of that, everything with COVID-19 and the quarantine and pandemic and all of that. But this is really the story, and I'll actually show it to you because it's just so profound to me how God does these things that you look back at, and they're literally like these mile marker moments of like God met me there.
Yeah.
So 2 weeks after the tornado, I was helping do cleanup work, and in the middle of this pile of debris of a house that had been completely demolished, I was just picking up like wood and rubble and everything, and I looked down and I found this little note, this post-it note, this little turquoise post-it note. And I don't know if it's backwards or how it looks, but
yeah, I can read it. It says, "You can run fast."
yep. And like you can see the mud on there, you can see all of that like got wet, it's kind of wrinkled, but it wasn't torn. It was literally just laying there. And when I looked at it, and especially when I picked it up, it just felt like something happened to me, and I didn't know what it even meant. I was like, what does that mean? But it felt like this is a message for me. I just took it home, and I 2 weeks later after that, I just had it like on my computer or just like near me. And 2 weeks later, I'm part of this entrepreneurs group that does a lot of stuff online, like real cutting edge, online business and for the kingdom of God and all of this stuff. So I've been studying that, I've been working with them and just like, anyway, the founder of that, we were on a Zoom call, and of course all the COVID stuff is starting to happen, full on. We're all quarantined, and he goes, "You guys, things aren't going to be the same as they were before, and we have to make a decision. It's time to run fast." And
Wow.
I just immediately, it's like the Holy Spirit was just like, whoa. And then he goes, "I'm going to challenge you to ask God." He goes, "Don't think a year ahead. Don't think 2 years ahead. Don't even think 2 months ahead." He goes, "Ask God tonight, who am I supposed to serve right now? Not how can I make money? Not, and this is an entrepreneur's group, business group, but he goes, ask God, who can I serve right now?" And I like took that challenge to heart. And that night, it was right before Easter. It was Palm Sunday weekend. And I laid in bed that night. I said, "God, please show me who I can serve. I'm asking you, like, show me." And that next morning, I woke up and, like, as close to Audible as I could describe hearing, I heard girls with guitars.
Wow. So he just gave it to you. You asked him, who am I supposed to be serving? And he said, girls with guitars.
Yeah. And what's so amazing to me, but I know he knows this, is like, if he had said that to me a year ago, I would not have had the framework of like the online, how to do that, how to put pieces in place, or even the vision for that. I would have probably been thinking like one-on-one, in person, trying to reach out to a few people, like, I don't know.
Yeah, it would have looked totally different a year ago.
Totally different. But it's like I'd been studying all of that online, and then the necessity to do things online was there, and it was like he plugged that, what I heard, girls with guitars, and it was like within a day, I'm like, I can run fast. Like, I'm doing this. I don't even, like, I'm just.
Yeah, it was confirmation. The same thing. He said, it's time to run fast.
Yeah, and I did. I mean, for 3 weeks, because I was like, I've never done this before. Like, I know how to play guitar, and I love people, and I love to teach. Like, all of that's in place, but in terms of just plugging the pieces in place, like, the administrative of just going, okay, I'm gonna like run ads that I don't even know where they're gonna go. So, or just reach out organically and just be like, I'm doing this if anyone's interested. I had no idea what was gonna happen.
Yeah,
What ended up happening was 135 women, girls of all ages. I'm not talking little girls or even teenagers. We're talking the gamut, like all
mm,
ages. I think 7 years old was our youngest to 70 plus
awesome.
of
That's
girls with guitars from all over. I have just now started to actually try to calculate like what all. I think we have almost all 50 states represented,
that's
and
amazing.
Germany, Australia, the Philippines, UK, and I'm like, what is happening? It was
Yeah, so
incredible.
cool.
Like God just blew my mind at because I know, like I said, I know it was him and the fruit of what happened over those 30 days. We started May 1st. So this is just we've just ended fairly recently.
Yeah, that's so perfect. Perfect timing because as soon as I heard about it, my friend Lisa
Yeah,
Hendrick told me about you, and she said, I joined the challenge because I've always wanted to play guitar. And she said, like, there were so many confirmations with that too. And she's the one that told me that I should have you on the show. And as she was telling me about what you were doing, I was like, yes, there's so many people that maybe even have a guitar or they're hiding it under their bed or it's in their closet or hanging on their wall and they think one
right,
day I'm going to learn to play guitar, you know?
right.
And so you've brought that to like a bite size challenge where people can do in 30 days, you know, take wherever they are and go forward. And like you said, just not quit. And so I see that as a big piece of encouraging people to do what's already in their heart
Hmm.
because you mentioned like people wanting to and having that desire but just needing to act on it,
Right.
and so that encouragement piece is really important of having a mentor or a teacher, someone that can say you can do this. So you launched it in May, you started the first challenge, and like you said, you wrapped up the first group, and now you're going to do it again in July. So for anyone listening right now, you can join in today and start this 30-day challenge for girls with guitars. And tell me a little bit about the structure of the challenge.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, one of the most beautiful things that it's not that I didn't know this would happen, but at the same time, anytime you do something new, uh, you just kind of think, how is this actually going to turn out, right? And what began to happen, so the structure is, of course, people will register at the website, but then I created a private Facebook group. So it's really a safe environment, because anytime you do something new, it can feel a little, you can feel that insecurity. Again, why a lot of times people may not even try, like we talked about. But
Mm-hmm.
private Facebook group where only the people, only the girls who sign up are in there. And so what I did is I went live in our Facebook group Monday through Friday of every week of those 30 days with a 30-minute lesson. And so they had the opportunity to either just sign up, kind of two levels. They could sign up to just be in the Facebook group and watch it on the live stream, or we streamed through Zoom so that if they wanted a little bit more interaction, they could be on that level in the group of being on the Zoom every day, just
Mm-hmm.
depending on what people's wants and needs are. And so it was a 30-minute live lesson. But of course, they didn't have to be on there when it was live. They could watch the replay if the schedule didn't work out.
Sure, I love that about online learning.
I know, it's really great. It's like either one, you just make it work for you.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, I was like, I can't, okay, it's 30 days, but anytime you're learning, you're taking that deep dive, you need the weekend to just practice or rest your fingers. And I made the promise. I said, you have to promise that you won't give up when your fingers hurt. I said, because your fingers will hurt.
Yes, they will. You have to push through.
That's
Can't
right.
give up. I
That's
agree.
right. And so, and then what I encourage them to do, and even more so now that I've seen what happened, is I said, we go live in our lesson, but I'm encouraging you, I'm challenging you to go live with your practice from day one. Doesn't have to be like the whole, really what I'm hoping for is that our lesson will be like the practice. We just do it together.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't feel overwhelmed, so you don't feel alone, so you can see your progress. I said, but even if it's like 1 minute or 2 minutes, even if you're so uncomfortable or scared, jump into our group. It's not for the world to see, it's just for our group, and we're all got the same goal. And
Right.
go ahead, because at the end of that 30 days, you're going to be able to see your day one and go, wow, I could not believe that that was possible. You
Mhm. And
know,
they see progress. If you can look
yeah,
back at where you first started and then even just a month later, if you are practicing a few minutes a day, you can make some big strides, like learning a new chord every day or learning a song a week or whatever it is. It looks different depending on if you have learned an instrument before as well. Because I know for me, I started on piano and then switched to guitar shortly after because I loved guitar
yeah,
and my mom was a piano teacher. So I got to the point where I was like, well, I know a few chords, so I'll just play some songs that have chords that I know.
yep,
Right. And then I would learn more songs with those chords, and then I would learn more chords. And so there's always more to learn. And that's what I love. Like anybody could come in, even if they have a little experience, no experience, even if they play another instrument but want to learn guitar. And so there's a lot you can do there, and everybody's on their own timeline. So
yeah.
it's not like you're competing, you're encouraging each other and just saying, hey, this is where I'm at, this is what I'm practicing today.
Right. And I found the girls that came in who had played already, a lot of them, so like you're saying, they knew the chords, but they just hadn't been playing. They were rusty. And so
Mhm.
even though teaching the basic part, they were like, well, I already know that. But even just the fact of going, I'm gonna be playing with this group, I kind of have this accountability to play,
Yes.
jump on the lie, to jump on. And I said, hey, if you already play, challenge yourself. Like, let this just be the launching pad of how you want to challenge yourself with guitar. So I may not need to teach you the parts of the guitar and the names of the strings. That may not be where you're at, but you can encourage other people who that is where they're at. We're all in
Hmm.
this together. And that's what happened. It created the most dynamic, life giving, loving, encouraging community of girls of all ages. Just
That's,
because, when you go live and when you go live on Facebook, people see it and you make comments, and it was just encouragement, and it was like a force. I was like, whatever this is, I know that I'm not even, I'm in charge to steward it, but it was so powerful. It would just bring me to tears to watch them
yeah.
jump on there and play and share, even share their fears and share their breakthroughs, and there were
Hmm.
a ton of them. It was incredible, just the testimonies and what was happening. Not just like, oh, I play this G chord now. Like, this is happening in my heart
Yeah.
through that process. And
Hmm.
I just thought, wow, God, thank you. What a
Yeah.
gift.
And just to see those breakthroughs of someone that has been putting it off for a long time or just wanted to get better but needed that accountability or the encouragement or just wanted some feedback. Like maybe they're not around other musicians to ask questions, but in a group like that, everyone's learning, everyone's trying to help each other.
Yep.
And so to be part of a community like that is so special. So tell our listeners how they can get into the challenge and be a part of the one that's happening in July.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I can add something really quick to that too, that
Sure.
maybe, because I have a feeling there's lots of moms that might be listening. And
Yeah.
one thing that I really had a vision for is that moms and daughters could do it. So it might be a little bit advanced to just, stick your 7-year-old in front of the computer and be like, go for it. But what a beautiful thing for a mom to jump in and commit to the 30 days and then help her daughter, whatever age, to do it together. What a bonding
Hmm.
experience. And I really have a vision that this is part of that. That is a lot of what happened, but I just want to mention that because I think, wow, what a cool thing to give a gift to your daughter and do it together. So,
Yeah, and I think even doing it with a friend too, if
yes.
someone is not a mom and is listening,
Yep.
but is just a girl who wants to play guitar, but maybe you have another friend, just to have that another layer of accountability.
Yeah.
But then again, if you don't have someone else in your life that you want to play guitar with, like I think just joining this community, like you're gonna have spiritual moms and daughters as well. I can just tell from the stories
So,
so far. So,
so
what's
many.
the best way for people to sign up and get into this group?
Yeah, so easily just jump on the internet and go to www.girlswithguitarschallenge.com. So step 1, that will take you through the sign up and explain what's there, and what's available. And then from that, once they register, they will be able to go into the Facebook group. And of course, I approve everyone and just make sure, okay, you are where you're where you're supposed to be, and that's part of it, just having a safe community. But yeah, it's just www.girlswithguitarschallenge.com.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing what you're doing, and thank you for pouring into the lives of other women, especially musicians who are wanting to learn guitar. And I know that's just going to have ripple effects in the kingdom of God, because they're going to spark something in this challenge that's going to bring new songs and bring them into a whole new area of maybe worship leading or songwriting, or just singing praises to the Lord. So I see this as such an amazing opportunity for anyone who's been putting it off and is ready to take that leap and join the challenge. So I do want to recommend that if this has pulled on some heartstrings today and you're listening to this and think, yeah, now's the time, this is it, this is your sign. So go to girlswithguitarschallenge.com to sign up, get into Krista's group for the July challenge, and join that community there. Krista, thank you so much for sharing some of your story today and some encouragement for our listeners. I really appreciate you being on the show.
You're so welcome. Thanks, Lydia. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please give it a thumbs up if you did, and make sure to subscribe to this channel for even more videos like this coming very, very soon. I appreciate you watching, and I want to invite you to check out the Rustic Songbird Podcast. You can see all of the previous episodes of interviews with people in the music industry by going to rusticsongbird.com/podcast. I'll see you in the next video.